critical thinking to assess assumptions. Assumptions are often necessary for critical thinking, but we need to avoid wrong assumptions if we want to make good decisions. An assumption is something we accept to be true, even if we are lacking all the evidence. Assumptions are not necessarily bad. We often need to make assumptions in decision making, as we cannot have absolutely all the information we want or need when making a choice. But we can get things wrong by applying assumptions in inappropriate circumstances, basing them on bad data or making assumptions based on wrong thinking. Therefore, for good critical thinking, we need to first separate assumption from fact. Secondly, only use an assumption in the appropriate context. Thirdly, not make an assumption based on bad information or selected through bias. And fourthly, examine our beliefs to ensure that they are not just limiting assumptions based on wrong thinking. For example, when I want to drink a flat white and go to a coffee shop, then I assume that the barista knows how to make one. I'll probably look for information to back up that assumption, such as whether they list a flat white on the menu. Therefore, I'm checking for data to support that assumption. To reduce the risk of the assumption, I might also employ a heuristic, a decision-making hack, such as going to a shop that I know and trust, to reduce the risk of getting a bad coffee. So now I'm trying to narrow down the context to one where my assumption is sound. However, if I employed that same assumption in the wrong place or without checking my data, I might be disappointed. For example, if I visited a coffee house in Istanbul, then I should not assume to get a flat white. It would be a bad assumption, and I'd also be missing out on some excellent Turkish coffee due to my biases. Some assumptions are not just applied to the wrong situation, they are based on corrupt data in the first place. We can compound the problem by then taking this inaccurate or limited information and then processing it poorly due to cognitive bias. So that means we need quality data, but we should not ignore information just because we don't like it. And to reduce the negative effects of cognitive bias, we must employ a range of information sources and a diversity of viewpoints. The other trap we can fall into with assumptions is bad thinking. By that I mean we can have wrong assumptions that are embedded, often unconsciously, in our minds. These beliefs often come from bad experiences or negative things that have been said to us in the past. If someone kept calling you stupid, then you might start to believe it. We can begin to believe that these things are facts, when they are, at best, just subjective ideas. Negative assumptions are often tied up with our feelings of self-worth. For example, you could be attracted to someone, but afraid to ask them out on a date. You might be thinking, I'm not good enough for them, or they are out of my league. We all have such hang-ups and insecurities that can clog our neural pathways. The author and coach Nancy Klein calls these blockages in our minds limiting assumptions. Limiting assumptions stop us from thinking and acting properly, so we need to identify these harmful assumptions and challenge them. Coaching can really help with doing just that, so if you want to change your thinking, get a good coach. As we've seen, assumptions are often necessary for decision making, but wrong assumptions can lead to poor choices and bad outcomes. So if we want to avoid poor assumptions, follow these 4 question steps. First, ask, what is an assumption and what is fact? Second, check, is this assumption being used in the appropriate context? Thirdly, question, do you have enough quality information and have you been ignoring data due to biases? Fourthly, regarding any beliefs about yourself, ask, are they true or are they limiting assumptions based on wrong thinking? If we can make these checks, then we are much more likely to be able to make good decisions. So why not apply these steps to the next decision you have to make today? If you would like any further help with this or any other subject, then do click on the related links or head over to the website at www.therightquestions.co.